Thank you so much. I want to start the story today in Lahore. So Lahore is an ancient city in the northeastern part of Pakistan. It's one of the oldest cities in South Asia. And for millennia, it has been the center of culture and, of course, great food, wonderful people, full of life, a city that is synonymous with learning, a city that is synonymous with schools and institutions, theater, great music, cinema, and a city that is also very dear to me. It's very close to my own heart. My father grew up here and spent most of his youth there. It's also a city where my grandparents are buried, and it's really a fantastic place for any of you who may ever get a chance to go there. I try to go there at any opportunity that I get. And in late January of 2012, something happened in Lahore that changed my life forever. January can be a little chilly and a bit foggy in Lahore. And towards the end of the month, people started dying in Lahore by a mysterious illness. Now, if you think that conspiracy theory is a 2016 phenomenon, think again. There were lots of conspiracy theories around. Maybe Pakistan's arch rival India was involved. Maybe it was a new form of terrorism. Maybe it was an epidemic that was attacking the citizens of Lahore. About 200 people died in a matter of a week. The doctors were stumped. It was the worst public health crisis in the sixth most populous country in the world, in Pakistan. Families were torn apart. Individuals who were loving and kind and caring, people like Ashik Hussain, who's shown here with his grandson, and the BBC did a fantastic story on him. People never saw him in any other posture except when he was smiling, and he was smiling till the last day. People were dying suddenly. Nobody knew what was going on. The government was stumped. The doctors didn't know the answers. It took weeks, perhaps months, to figure out that it wasn't a new form of epidemic. It wasn't some kind of conspiracy from the eastern neighbor, and it certainly wasn't any terrorism. It was the presence of substandard drugs in the system of this hospital. To put this in perspective, in 1937, in the US, there was a very famous incident of elixir of sulfonamide that cost the lives of about 100 people over a year, and that formed the modern FDA. This was twice as worse, and instead of a year, it took a week. This changed everything for me. I had been thinking about the issue of substandard and counterfeit medicines, but this was very, very, very close to home. The people who were affected were largely poor, dependent on government health care, who didn't have anything at all except government to go to for their medicines. And the very hospitals that were supposed to cure them were actually killing them. As I started thinking a little bit more about it, I had been thinking before, but as I started thinking more about it and we started looking at data, we realized that this wasn't just a problem in Lahore or in Pakistan. It was a problem that affected every corner of the world, in every country, or nearly every country. But it affected largely people who were poor, and of course, people who were most vulnerable, mothers and children. The problem of counterfeit or substandard or poor quality medicines is a multidimensional problem. It is not just the loss of precious life, which of course is very, very, very tragic. And it's not just a problem in some far corner of the world that we don't care about. It's a problem that affects me and my kids here in Camden or in Boston where we live, and all of you. The problem is that it creates antimicrobial resistance and resistance against our best and most potent drugs. It also undermines the effort of hundreds of billions of dollars put together by various governments to improve the health outcomes. Think about it this way, that somehow we can diagnose disease, and by some sort of great process, we can even get the patient to the hospital or the clinic. But the last bit of that drug that is supposed to cure that individual is not functioning. The entire system depends on that last bit to get that person to get a little bit better. And if that doesn't work, our efforts are not going to work. Just to give you a magnitude of the problem, the World Health Organization estimates that about 30% or perhaps even a little bit more of all antimalarials are substandard or counterfeit or falsified. Now, last year, there were more than 225 million cases of malaria. And if a third of all of those medicines are not up to quality, think about the importance of this problem. We somehow think that the issue of substandard and counterfeit medicines is that of crime and some syndicated group in some shadows is sort of really raking big bucks. And that is part of the problem, and that is indeed a crime, but that is not the whole story. And that's why it's important, and that has been important for us to think about it. Here are 4 pictures. If you start at the top left, that is a picture of a real cough syrup being made in a factory that is going to go to a market and serve kids. The factory had a license to operate, not a counterfeit. Okay, they had the license. Or the drugs may be degraded, or they may have lost their potency in heat, or they may be expired. I took the picture on your top right in March of 2014, on its way to the market. Look at the expiration date. This is going to the market. And by the time it gets to the person, maybe a year, maybe 2 years later. And there is intentional falsification, where naive consumers, or even good consumers, I still don't know which one is real and which one is not on the left, bottom left. And of course, there is the issue of lack of regulation, where drugs are available easily, so you can choose anything you want, whether or not you have the right ailment, whether or not you even know what the problem is. But there is one more problem that we often ignore, and that is those who are the custodians of safety and are entrusted with quality and protection themselves may not have the resources or the capacity, material, technological, or intellectual, to do it. This is a picture that I took of a drug testing lab. So the problem really needs a comprehensive solution, something that is truly going to solve the problem at all points in the supply chain. And out of this concern came our technology a few years ago, which we call Pharmaceuticals. The idea of Pharmaceuticals is basically that we want to empower people, but we also want to empower institutions, governments, and regulators. That we want to be able to test things at multiple points in the supply chain. When we looked at existing technologies, the one that you may have available here in the United States or in Germany or in the UK, they are large and cumbersome and require grid power and resources and training and consumables. Those things are not available. Even technologies or systems that use barcode only look at the label. They are good solutions, but they wouldn't have helped anybody in Pakistan. The company was making the drugs under license. At some point, you have to test what's inside the pill. You have to see what's inside the bottle. You cannot rely on barcodes, on names and labels alone. So the idea of the technology is that we want to accurately and affordably test medicines that are life-saving drugs, that make a difference between life and death of a mother, a baby, an elderly, or anybody for that matter, and do so in an affordable way, and do so in a way that is easy to understand and easy to implement. The technology at the core of Pharmaceuticals rests on recent developments in fluidics and imaging, in making things compact, in being able to what one might call democratize solutions. The idea is that we, in our lab, are developing a suite of molecules that are selective, sensitive, and specific to the drug target. So think about it this way. If I want to test an antimalarial, well, we have molecules that would bind only to that antimalarial. And as they bind, they'll give off light. And the amount of light that is given off, that can be measured using an iPhone or simple camera, is proportional to the amount of the drug. So a drug that is 20% pure will give a signal that is 20% of the maximum. Same thing with 43 or 88. And this is very, very, very important for us, because we do not want to have just a yes or no solution whether it has some drug or not. We need to know how much is in there, because sometimes a subtherapeutic dose does more harm than good. The second aspect that is very important for us is to rely on science, but also realize that we need to have partners who need to come from public health and business, engineering and community help, and leaders who are leading the community through faith-based groups or through churches or mosques, because they understand the society. And we need to learn from them of what may or may not work, and in doing so may contribute to helping their problems. It is also important for us to develop a technology that works at all points in this supply chain, not just at the consumer level, because I find it unethical that a mother who probably had to travel miles and miles and has only one chance and is told that your drug may or may not be good, it is her responsibility to test it. It is not her responsibility. It is the responsibility of things upstream to make sure that what she gets is of the desired quality. So we want to be able to test things at all points, even when this supply chain is compromised or is under tremendous pressure, as is happening in Syria, or as happened in Ghana, where a couple of years ago, the central medical store that you see, or central warehouse that you see there, where all of the drugs from all over the world that were procured come in, millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars, the entire thing was burned down. And it's not the fault of Ghanaians. It's not the fault of people that we work with. So we want to be able to test at all points in the supply chain. And in doing so, we want to empower both the local community and also the system. People like Alfred, who has been a partner, a colleague, a mentor from the very beginning. So Alfred is Ghanaian and has been working with us. And we were able to train him in a matter of minutes. And for him to be able to go and procure drugs that are available in a market not too far from his home, and to be able to see those drugs and how good they are or not, and to be able to quantitatively and easily analyze that is important not just for him and his family. It is also important because that allows him to empower others, that allows him to strengthen the institution and help the government as a whole. At the end of the day, this entire process of PharmaCheck and our ability to test drugs at all points in supply chain rest on a single belief, which we believe is a fundamental human right of every patient, that no matter who you are, where you live, what you earn or not, if you get sick and you are in need of a medicine, you get a drug that is of the right quality, always. Thank you very much.